I would love for you to put yourself now. Let's say you are the current U.S. men's national team.
I'm not, Charlie.
I know, but
come on, play with us.
You talked about chemistry. I think you were one of the best coaches that I've come across that understands how to put players together that complement each other well to get the most out of the group. So what formation do you think you would play in this midfield? Would you play the way that Pochettino has kind of now set up with 2 almost 6s, 2 8s, if you will, and 2 10s? Would you go with a 4-4-2? Would you put Christian central versus playing him wide? I'm just curious how you would kind of organize this team.
That's a good
Welcome
question,
to the show, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Well,
welcome.
The seat's getting a little hot.
Yeah. What would I say? We do have players, Anthony Robinson, Dest, good examples, that fit well into a system that has wingbacks, where those players have abilities to really get forward. When Anthony Robinson is playing on the left as a wingback, that also fits well with whatever you're doing with Christian, because we all know that Christian, whether you start him a little bit wide or however you play, his ability to come inside and come into the pocket and be more central is really important. He gets into the box really well. Again, I mentioned earlier his creativity. When you do that, then you have real challenges as to who you play behind them. So I think we would all say that Tyler on his best day brings important qualities.
Right.
When balls turn over, his reactions, his ability to put out fires, his leadership, all things that now at his best really help the team. And then you run into a really big question. Who do you play next to him?
Right.
And when I mentioned Weston a few minutes ago, you guys both get excited. How could we not? How are we going to use Weston? He could play next to Tyler. For me, that's not his best role. In certain games, if he's playing alongside a player like Tyler Adams and he's got some freedom to go forward, he will add things in the attack. His timing and his ability to get into the box, fantastic. The only question I have there is that on certain moments in the defensive transition, I don't think that's his greatest quality. Now, maybe Mauricio can bring that out of him. Maybe that can still be an area that they work on. But I also think that when Weston's a little higher up the field, he's at his best. And then you start going through all the players that could play next to Tyler.
Right. Tessman, Cardoso.
Tessman's interesting. He provides some real abilities to play different kind of passes, long passes. Cardoso, I thought he had an excellent game the other day. He scores a goal. So those things are interesting. But again, I also love that in teams on certain days that you have a real midfield three and that there's real chemistry among all three. So I'm interested to see how that's going to go.
Bob, do you think it's situational where if we're playing against the Paraguay, you could potentially put Weston off the shoulder of Tyler, knowing that you might have a little bit more of the ball, or maybe Australia is a better example because we know that they're going to sit back, and Paraguay's probably a little bit better in transition than Australia, all things considered. And then maybe when you're taking on a bigger opponent, and we're going to play a lot of those in these friendlies coming up, you could put maybe someone like Tessman a little deeper, or a little bit more defensive minded, and then have Weston a little bit higher. I don't know. It's interesting. Luciano Spalletti started Weston as the false nine in leg one against Galatasaray, and then in leg two, he's playing left wing back. I mean, the guy is clearly a jack of all trades and has the trust of a top manager, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a good fit for certain situations. So I guess using Weston as an example, I was kind of curious on your thoughts. If you evaluate players based on, and I know that you do, but I just wanted to kind of extrapolate on that.
It's definitely situational. And I think as a manager, when you go into a game, you try to have a real clear picture of what's this game going to look like. And so for sure, on certain days playing against a low block where we feel that we need a little bit more going forward, you might set up your team a little bit differently. In the back of every manager's mind is this idea that when we get to the biggest games and the toughest opponents, then what are we going to look like? And so that's where these next two games, I think for all fans, are really exciting because unfortunately, Mauricio comes in, doesn't have a full cycle. That's a challenge. We know the experiences that you guys had with me. When you've got a full cycle, when you've got those summers of double tournaments, a lot is gained. And then this whole Nations League thing means that you don't get as many opportunities to play really, really big teams. So I'm sure behind the scenes, there's a lot of discussion, not just about those first games in the group, but when we get out of the group and we play against certain teams, what's going to happen? So that part is really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. So heading into these March friendlies, you know, you got Belgium and Portugal. There's going to be a lot placed on, hey, this is the last audition for some guys, and probably for Mauricio Pochettino, he has a good sense of maybe 20 players who he's bringing with him to the World Cup, and maybe 6 are probably up for debate. How would you go into this last set of friendlies? And the reason I ask is because it feels like you want to put out your best team to really challenge them, but then at the same time, you want to put out those guys that are kind of on the fence. And some of the MLS guys, I think Sebastian Berhalter has really improved over his time with Pochettino. Max Arfsen, even Roldan, for instance, the experience that he brings. So how would you tackle these two friendlies?
Me, I probably would do it different than what I expect. I would be figuring out my best team because I don't think there's been enough opportunities to put a version of whatever the coaches think is the best team on the field against a really, really tough opponent. So I would be thinking like that and start those games with that in mind, and then probably have some ideas for substitutions to get a look at some other players. But to your point, these are the games that are going to determine the roster. And so this idea that you want to see certain guys one more time, do you put them on the field at the beginning? But for me, I would be chomping at the bit to say, I want to see what we look like against Belgium, against Portugal, with this group on the field, playing like this, with this mentality. I'll be interested to see how we do it. It's always a challenge because it's also, as you get closer to the decisions, what's going on with guys with the clubs? Are they healthy? You run into small injuries. Clubs don't want to release guys. So knock on wood, we'll have our best group, and we'll see what he does.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the roster looks like as well. Jedi Robinson nursing a bit of an injury. Hopefully he'll be healthy in a month's time to get the call in, because we'd like to see him get some valuable minutes. And got some players that are playing out of their minds. All of our strikers are scoring goals. Johnny Cardoso scoring his first goal for Atleti in the Champions League against Club Brugge. And then you have Weston McKennie continuing to score goals, scored another big one against Galatasaray.
Then you got the whole debate of Weah or Dest, if they are playing
right wing back
spot.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to tackle here. One of the areas, though, Bob, that I want to get your thoughts on is center back. You gave Tim Ream his debut for the U.S. men's national team back in 2010. That's how long that Tim Ream has been playing for our national team. It's absolutely ridiculous, and fair play to him. Every time you think we should be moving on from this guy, he proves that he should be the guy, that he's got the leadership and the composure to solve a lot of problems, both with and without the ball. I guess, what are your thoughts on Tim Ream still doing it? And what do you think our best, let's say, if we get back to chemistry, who our best back line is for you?
All credit to Tim. I think at the time we saw a left-sided center back who was confident with the ball, good passer, and we were anxious to get him going with the national team and get him that type of experience. And one of the things that we talked about after the World Cup in 2010 was still, when looking at some of the younger center backs was passing and playing out of the back. And how do you improve a little bit? Now, I say that I don't want to ever take away anything from guys like Gooch and guys like Jaden Demerit. Look, at the time when we had the chance to play big teams and find out what it was like to play against Zlatan and Elmander when we played Sweden, and to play against Rooney, and to play against Luciano Fabiano and really big strikers. Those guys showed me that when we played in those kind of games, they weren't afraid. They felt that they could play against the biggest guys and it was no problem. And we worked to get better playing from the back. There were times with that group that when we got pressed, we were a little bit more direct. And then the World Cup ends and you're starting to think about the next cycle. And sure enough, you're watching Tim and you're thinking, yep. And look, there were others, Michael Parkhurst, guys that you admired the way they played. And so that process was starting, and Tim was one of those guys. And then you think of everything that he's done since. It's amazing. And
is that the friendly versus South Africa where Bunbury and Agudelo were both playing up top? I feel
South Africa, that was the second Mandela Challenge. That was one of them. We had games in Philadelphia against Colombia, 0-0. We had some really good opponents following the World Cup, and so getting those guys involved. Some had been involved earlier. Michael was involved at times before the World Cup, and always showed really good qualities. He had gone to Nordsjælland. At a certain point, he was playing more as a right back, and so we were trying to compare him with guys like Stevie and early in the tenure, Frankie Haydick still, and then Spector. So you're constantly looking at all those things. But when you get back to Tim, here we are, and we still see that when it comes to playing from the back, the quality that he gives us, his ability to pass inside, pass long, pass short, play under pressure is really, really good. Mm-hmm. And now, once again, going back to what you were talking about, Jimmy, situationally, what's the game going to look like? Mm-hmm. And is it going to be a game where we have more of the ball and that passing is really, really important? Or will we ever get to a game where we look at the attackers for the other team and then we say, you know what, I don't think this is the right day for Tim. And so I think behind the scenes, those are probably the kind of discussions. Tim can play left in the back 3/5. Obviously, he can play left back. And then when we start trying to piece together all of the possibilities in the back, because of some injuries and everything that's gone on, I think it's still up for grabs to see exactly how we're going to build a back line. Is it going to be defensively more with three at times? So, yes, I look forward to seeing that as well.
Well, on the center back topic, what about a player like Noahkai Banks, Mark McKenzie? Noahkai Banks has been involved with the group but hasn't played yet and given that opportunity. At this juncture, would you think he should get an opportunity now, a look given his run of games with Augsburg?
Yeah, quickly, let's do McKenzie. He's having an excellent season for Toulouse, and so that has to count. And now you get to a young player like Noahkai Banks. I heard he did well when he was in camp. When you watch him, for a tall boy, he moves very well. He's very easy on his feet. Augsburg plays more with three in the back. He's shown that he can play right in the three or left in the three. When you play three, one of the things that you get out of it is that when teams are playing in the half space, your left and right center backs can be very aggressive to step up. He does that at Augsburg. At times, he gets tight and he can get spun or he fouls. And then there are other moments when he has to move wide and defend where I would still say as a young player, maybe he goes to the ground too much. And so he's playing in the Bundesliga. He's doing a really good job. I'm hoping to see him in these games. I think that to have a young player like that, and as much as Augsburg plays with three, certainly in his career he has played as a center back and four, and now you just have to try to figure out whether or not he's ready to do that in the World Cup. But I think he's a strong candidate.
Yeah, and I think his future is extremely bright if it doesn't work this World Cup cycle. There was a goal again against Augsburg this past weekend. They came back and won against Wolfsburg 3-2, but he tried to go and slide over. Bob and Charlie, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the other center back or the other defender was in a decent position to kind of manage a 1v1 situation. It was on a break, so it ended up being kind of like a 2v2 transition moment. And he kind of slid way over to go help his teammate, and then the ball just got slotted between his legs, and they had an easy tap in at the back post. I mean, those are the kind of moments that are we ready to trust him when maybe he hasn't seen enough plays, right? He's just a young player. He just needs to have more and more repetition. And so
but the more experience he gets, the quicker.
Totally.
I don't feel that potential.
I agree. And since the rosters are 26, if you're going to throw a flyer and get a kid some experience, then yeah, he'd be on top of the list for me. But I don't know if you want to sacrifice that in other ways. Oh, look at you. You got to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. So if you want more average to good content, then you know where to go find it. Go peruse our channel, then hit like, then hit subscribe, and of course, turn on your notifications so that you never miss a show. We'll see you next time.